Hey guys, so I'm going to go through a full GCSE non-calculator paper today. I was hoping to do a live stream, but it wouldn't allow me to do so, so I'm just going to do a recording and I'll post it. So first question, work out 818.4 divided by 1.2. Now if I were to rewrite this question as a fraction, it would be 818.4 divided by 1.2. Because I don't like dealing with decimals, I'm going to times the numerator and denominator by 10. And that way I remove the decimals and becomes 8184 divided by 12. Now, one method of doing this is this. I could keep simplifying the numbers. Because they're both even, I could half them. So that would become 4092 divided by 6. And if I half it again, it becomes 2046 divided by 3. And then I could use a boost-up method to see what 2046 divided by 3 is. 3 goes into 26 times, gives you a remainder 2. 3 goes into 24 8 times. 3 goes into 6 2 times. So your answer is 682. Now another method, another way of doing it is just directly do 8184 divided by 12. 12 goes into 81 6 times, gives you a remainder of 9. 12 goes into 98 8 times, it gives you a 96, so it gives you a remainder of 3. And 12 goes into 2. And 12 goes into 24 2 times and gives you 682 as your answer. So next question. It says the table shows the probabilities a biased dice will land on 3, 4, 5 or 6. Kareem assumes the probabilities the dice will land on 1 and 2 are the same. Kareem rolls the biased dice 500 times. Now we know that all of these must be equal to 1, which is a 100% chance. So we add the four numbers that we have, 0.1 plus 0.3 plus 0.05 plus 0.25. That gives me 0.7. For the 1 minus 0.7 comes to 0.3. And because the probabilities these two are equal, and therefore I was to half 0.3, it comes to 0.15. So I'll have 0.15 here, 0.15 over here as well. Now for the actual question they're saying, Kareem's going to roll the biased dice 500 times. Assuming he's right, work out the estimate of the known times he will land on a 2. Now, all I have to do is I have to do 500 times 0.15. 500 is the same as 5 times by 100 times 0.15. So now if I did 100 times 0.15, that gives me 15. If I times that by 5, the answer of 75. Now for the next part, it says, Kareem is wrong. The probability the dice will land on 2 is greater than the probability the dice will land on 1. How does it affect the answer to part A? Well, if the probability is greater, then I have to do 500 times by a number that's greater than 0.15, which gives me an answer that's bigger than 75. So how would that change my answer? I will get an answer greater than 75. Right, moving on to question number 3. It says work out 3.5 minus 1 and 6th. And the question says give your answer as a mixed number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this part because that's important for me. At the end, I'm going to need to make sure that my answer is a mixed number. So first thing, if I change each of the fractions into improper fractions, 3 times 2 is 6, add 1 is 7, so it becomes 7 over 2. Minus second one, 1 times 6, times them two together, add the 1 at the top, gives you 7 over 6. And because I need to have a common denominator, I could use 6 as a common denominator because that's the lowest common multiple of them two numbers. So I need to times the first fraction by 3 to make it into a denominator of 6. So give me 21 over 6 and minus. Second one doesn't change. And now because I'm doing this subtraction, this denominator is the same. 21 take away 7, which gives me 14 over 6, which simplifies to 7 over 3. Now, because they asked me for a mixed number as my answer, 3 goes into 7 2 times, gives you a remainder of 1, so it becomes 2 1/3. The next question. Show that 5 1/4 divided by 2 1/3 is equal to 2 1/4. So I'm going to start with changing my fractions into improper fractions. So 5 times 4 is 20, add 1 is 21 over 4. And that's going to be divided by 2 times 3, which is 6 plus 1, which is 7 over 3. Now we'll actually do the step in which I change the sign to multiplication and I do the reciprocal of the second fraction. And at this point, I could actually do cross simplifying because 7 goes into 21 3 times. So it gives you 3 times 3 on the top, 3 times 3, and 4 times by 1 in the denominator. 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 1 is 4. And if I were to change this into a mixed number, which I need to do so to check to see if it's equal to 2 1/4, 4 goes into 9 twice, gives you a remainder of 1, so it becomes 2 1/4. Next question. ABCD is a parallelogram. All angles are measured in degrees. Find an expression in terms of E for the size of the angle CAD. So this is the angle that I want to find, and I'm going to call the angle X. Now, if I know that this is a parallelogram, then I know the sides at the top are parallel to each other, and the bottom, and the two ones are also parallel to each other. Now, because I've got parallel lines, I know some rules of angles in parallel lines. I know that the angle at the top and the bottom over here, they form co-interior angles, so they must be equal to 180 degrees. So if I was to create a formula for that, x plus e plus 3e is equal to 180. X plus 4e equals 180. Subtract 4e from both sides and I get x equals 180 minus 4e, and that is your answer. Question number 5. A car travelled 4.96 miles at an average speed of 30.4 miles per hour. Work out an estimate for the time taken by the car. So, first thing, when the word estimate comes into your question, you have to round each of the numbers to one significant figure. So 4.96 is rounded to 5 and 30.4 is rounded to 30. Now, because I know my distance, which is 5, and I know my speed, which is 30, I'm going to use a formula which says speed is equal to distance over time. I'm going to rearrange that, and that gives me time is equal to distance divided by speed. So my distance is 5, and I'm dividing by the speed, which is 30. And if I were to cancel out, it gives me 1 over 6. So my time is 1/6 of an hour. But the question says give your answer in minutes. So 1/6 of an hour, which is 60 minutes, gives you 10 minutes. And that is your answer. Part B, it says, is your answer to part A an underestimate or overestimate? Now, the top number, which was my speed, I've rounded that down to 30, no, my distance, sorry. I've rounded distance to 5, so I've rounded up. And then I've rounded my speed to 30. So I've rounded one down and I've rounded the other one up. So that gives me an overestimate as miles rounded up and speed rounded down. Right, moving on to question number 6. Here is a pentagon. Angle A is equal to angle C, so I'm going to call them both X because they are equal to each other. Angle B is 155, so I could write here 155 degrees. Angle D is 3 times angle C, size of angle C, so angle D is going to be 3x. And angle E is 2 times angle C, so this is going to be 2x. Now, for me to have the interior angles of any given polygon, I use the formula which is n minus 2 times by 180. That equals sum of interior angles. My number of sides is equal to 5. So I have to take away 2 times by 180, and that becomes 3 times 180. That gives me 540 degrees. So I know now if I add all these angles together, the 155 plus the 1x and the 2 and the 3 and the 1, that gives me 7x. That's going to come to 540 degrees. Take away 155 on both sides, I get 7x equals 385 degrees. Divide both sides by 7, I get x equals, now, how many times does 7 go into 385? 7 goes into 38, 5 times gives you a remainder of 3, it goes into 35, 5 times, so it gives you 55. The question asked me, I'm just going to make a quick check, work out the size of angle A. Because I said angle A was equal to x, then that is my size of angle A, which is 55 degrees. Right. Question number 7. It says the graph shows a volume of water, V liters in a tank at time t seconds. What does the gradient of this graph represent? Well, as you can see, my vertical scale is giving me the change in the volume, and because that's giving me over time, then it's the rate of change of volume. That's what your homework. Question number 8. It says the diagram shows a solid triangular prism on a horizontal floor. The face in contact with the floor is a rectangle of width 2 meters. That's this given over here, 2 meters. The pressure on the floor due to the prism is 80 newtons. So my pressure is 80 and the force exerted in the prism is 720. So force equals 720. Work out the length of the prism. Now, I have this formula here. Pressure is equal to force over the area. So from there, because I know the pressure and I know the force, 80 is equal to 720 divided by the area. So for rearrange that, I get area is equal to 720 divided by 80, divided both by 10, and it gives you area is equal to 9. Now that's going to be 9 meters squared. So I know that the area of the base rectangle is going to be 9. If I put L over here as my length, and that is what the question is asking me to find, the length of the prism, then that's equal to 2 times L. Divide both sides by 2, and I get L equals 4.5 meters. And that's the length of the prism. Question number 9. It says the cumulative frequency graph gives information about the marks of 60 students got in a test. So that's the curve given there. For these 60 students, the highest mark was 74. So I know the highest mark is 74, which is over here, 74, and the lowest mark was 8, which is this point over here. On the grid below, draw a box plot for the distribution of the marks. Now, for a box plot, I need 5 pieces of information. I need the lowest value, I need the lower quartile, I need the median, I need the upper quartile, and I need the highest value. Now, I know the lowest value, which is 8. Now, if you look at the scale at the bottom, each line represents 2, so I need to go 4 across over here. And the highest is 74, so that needs to be at this point over here. Now, to find my lower quartile, I need 1/4 of the cumulative frequency, and that's going to be 15. So if I draw a line that goes across from here and goes all the way down from here, then I get a reading of 25. So that is going to be my lower quartile value, and I could draw that over here. That gives me 25. My upper quartile is going to be 3 times the lower quartile, so I need a value that's going to be 45 over here. So if I was to draw a straight line that went across over here and then go down from there, I come to a reading of 42 at this point. So my value over here is going to be 42. And lastly, I need the median value, which is half of the cumulative frequency, so it needs to be 30 at this point. Go across and come down from there. Get myself a value of 34. So that's my median value, which is 34 over here. I have all my points drawn. I just need to draw my actual box plot between them. And there you have it. Don't forget the 2 lines joining the box with the lowest and largest value. Now, next part of the question says, The pass mark for the test was 40. And Sean says 30% of the 60 students passed the test. Is he right? You must show how you get the answer as well. So, first thing, 30% of 60. If I were to find 30% of 60, 10% is equal to 6 people. So then 30% would be 18 people. Now, if I were to go back to my actual cumulative frequency and look at the pass mark of 40, so if I just change the color and look at pass mark of 40 over here and draw myself a line that goes up from here and draw a line that goes across from over here, then I come to a reading of 42. Now, anything above that, they're the people that actually pass the test. So what's the difference between 60 and 42? 60 minus 42 is equal to 18. So he's actually correct because 18 people did pass. And that was 30% of the people. Question number 10. Work out 25 to the power half times by 8 to the power 1/3. Now, 25 to the power half is the same as square root because the power half is the square root. And I'm going to times that by 8 to the power 1/3, which is a cube root. So after square root 25, which is 5, cube root 8, which is 2, multiply them together, and you get an answer of 10. Next one, find the value of 1 over 32 to the power 3 over 5. Now, 32 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 to the power 5. So this becomes 1 over 2 to the power 5, all to the power 3 over 5. When I have a power inside the bracket and outside the bracket, I have to multiply the powers together. So it becomes 1 over 2 to the power 5 times by 3 over 5, which 5's cancel out and gives you 1 over 2 to the power of 3. 2 cubed is equal to 8, so this becomes 1 over 8, and there you have your answer. Question number 11. Katie was asked to factorize x squared plus 5x plus 6 in the form x plus a, x plus b. Kate says, the sum of a and b must be 6, and the product of a and b must be 5. Well, actually, the sum of the two must be 5, and the product of the two must be 6. So explain how she's wrong. So you write the product of a and b is 6. The sum of a and b is 5. She mixed them up. Next question. Factorize fully 2m squared minus 2. Well, factorize means to put a bracket there. And fully, well, I'll go through that when I go through the steps. So first thing, I can see that 2 goes into both of the terms. That would give me m squared minus 1. Now, this is actually an example of difference of squares. So if you're aware of difference of squares, if I have two brackets, a plus b times by a minus b, that gives me a squared minus b squared. So if I were to square root each of them, the m squared and the 1, it would give me m plus 1 in the first bracket and m minus 1 in the second bracket, and that is my factorizing done fully. Next one, factorize fully again. Ax plus bx minus ay minus by. Now, you can see from the first two terms that x is common to both of them, so I could take a factor of x out, which gives me a plus b inside the bracket. And the next two, I've got a y in there as well. And if I put a minus in there, then I'm only looking at positive, so it's going to be a plus b inside the bracket. Now, if you compare these two brackets as well, I've got exactly the same thing in both of the brackets. I could actually take a factor of a plus b out. So it's going to become a plus b, and whatever's outside in front of them two brackets is going to be the term inside my second bracket, so it's going to become x minus y, and that is your answer fully factorized. Question number 12. It said A, B, and C are three solid spheres. So we've got A, we've got B, and we've got C. A, B, and C. We've been given the volume of A, which is 64, centimeters cubed and 125 centimeters cubed for B. And said the radius of C is 50% less than the radius of B. So between the two of them, because it's 50% less, we have a length scale factor. Well, if I actually go the other way, if I go this way now, that tells me the length scale factor between them two is 2, because B is actually bigger than C. So the question is saying to me, work out the ratio of the surface area of A to the surface area of C. Now, if I compare just A and B, I have myself a volume scale factor, and that's going to be 125 divided by 64. So if I was to find the length scale factor from there, I have to cube each of the numbers, and that will give me 5 and 4. I find the area scale factor between the two, I have to square them, so it gives me 25 over 16. So for A and for B, my area scale factor is 25 to 16 between the two of them. Now, if I compare B and C, my length is 2, therefore my area scale factor must be equal to 2 squared, which is 4. So let's see over here. Now, if I compare just the length scale factors first, if I have the length scale factor over here, my first one over here for between A and B was 5 and 4. So my length is 5 over here, 4 over here. And for C now, because C is half the length of B, then that must be 2.5. Now, if that's 2.5, if I was to square that, it would give me 6.25 as my area scale factor. So if I compare the first one and the third one, because I'm comparing A and C, so I'm looking at this number over here and this number over here, and I don't want to have decimal values over here. So what I could do is I could times both of them by 4. Now, I've actually got that wrong. If you just look at this over here, this should have been 25 and this should have been 16. So these are the two values I'm comparing them to them. If I times both of them by 4, I will no longer have any decimal values. This will give me 64 over here, and this will give me 25. So the surface area of A is 65, and as a ratio to C, which is 64, and that is my answer. There you go. Right, question number 12. Here are two cuboids. All lengths are measured in centimeters. The volume of cuboid A is 142 centimeters cubed, greater than the volume of cuboid B. So first thing, I need to find the volume of cuboid A. For that, I have to times the length and the height and the width together. And because they're in terms of x, I have to times them with brackets around. So x plus 2 times by 2x minus 1 times by x minus 1. If I expand the first two brackets, I'll have 2x squared. 2 times 2x is plus 4x. Minus 1 times x is minus 1x. And 2 times minus 1 is minus 2. And if I collect the like terms, then I'll have 2x squared plus 3x minus 2. And that all needs to be multiplied by x minus 1. So if I expand these two brackets now, I'll have 2x cubed minus 2x squared plus 3x squared minus 3x minus 2x plus 2. Collect like terms, and I have 2x cubed plus x squared minus 5x plus 2. And this is the volume of A. Now, if I do the same thing and work out the volume of B, then volume of B is going to be equal to 2x times by x plus 3x minus 3. And these two over here are example of difference of squares. So it becomes 2x bracket x squared minus 9. Expand the bracket, get 2x cubed minus 18x. And because the volume of cuboid A is 142 greater than the volume of cuboid B, I have to add 142 to the volume of B. And that's equal to 2x cubed plus x squared minus 5x plus 2. Now, I've got 2x cubed on both sides, so they automatically cancel out. If I take everything from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, it becomes x squared plus 13x minus 140 is equal to 0. And I could only factorize a quadratic if it's equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, then I cannot do so. Now, if I look through the factors of 140 minus 140, and because the coefficient of x is 13, then I know the bigger number needs to be positive and the smaller numbers needs to be negative. So if I think of all the factors, I've got 1 and 140, 2 and 70, 3 is equal to 4 gives you 35, 5 gives you 28. None of them so far add up to 13, and then 7 goes into it 20 times, and this is going to be plus and this is going to be minus, and these are the ones I'm looking at. So I'm going to have x minus 7, x plus 20 equals 0. Therefore, x equals 7 or x equals minus 20. And because we have a length, x cannot equal to minus 20, so x must be equal to 7. And that is your answer, guys. X equals 7. Next question, question number 14. So it said, we're given a triangle. It's not a right angle triangle. And we said work out the length of A to B. So I'm going to call this length X. Now, because in my question I've got two lengths and two angles, then I'm going to use a sine rule. And sine rule is, because I won't find the missing length, then I'm going to use that as the numerator. So it can be x over, and because these two sides are linked together and these two linked together, the opposite is there, then it's going to be x over sine 45 is equal to 3 root 2 over sine 30. Now, if I take the sine 45 to the other side, it becomes x equals 3 root 2 times sine 45 over sine of 30. And if you've seen my video recently that I made on exact trig values, then you would know that sine 45 is equal to root 2 divided by 2, and sine of 30 is equal to a half. So this becomes 3 root 2 times by root 2 over 2, and then all of that is divided by 1/2. So root 2 times root 2 becomes 2 divided by 2, and if I change it to multiplication and 2 over 1, then x is going to be equal to, now they two cancel out and just leaves with 3 times 2, so therefore x equals 6, and there you have it. Value of x, the length AB is 6 centimeters. Question number 15. It said O, X, Y, and Z is a parallelogram. So I know this side is parallel to this side over here, and this side is parallel to this side over here. And they said O to Y is equal to A, and O to Z is equal to B. So this length is B. M is a point on O to Y, so that O to M and M to Y is 1 to 3. So I've got 4 parts in total. So this is 1/4, and this must be 3/4 of the part. And N is a point on O to Z, such that O to N and N to Z is 1 to 2. So I've got 3 parts in total. So this part is 1/3, and this part is 2/3. And the question is asking me this: work out the ratio of N, X to N, and M to N. So I need to find what X to N is. I need to know what M to N is as well. So I need to find them first. Now, for me to go from X to N, let me map out my way. If I go, because I know there's a parallelogram, I know that this is going to be B as well. So if I follow this row over here, go all the way across over here, then go all the way down from here, and then go across over here, I would get to N. Now, what's the vectors I've gone across there? So I've gone across B, I have minus A, and the third part, this O to N, is 1/3 of the whole vector from O to Z, which is B as well. So if I collect, b plus 1/3 b becomes 4 over 3b minus a, and that is your vector x to n. Now for m to n, I just change the color and I'll show you the way as well. Change it to red. So if I was to go along this way over here and go across over here now, I'm looking at two vectors. So it's going to be minus 1/4 a plus 1/3 b. I thought to write both of them as a ratio next to each other. So x to n and m to n, I've got 4 over 3b minus a. If I rewrite this in terms of 1/3 b minus 1/4 a, then this becomes 1/3 b minus 1/4 a. Now, if I was to multiply everything by 12, I won't have any fraction left. So times everything by 12. 12 times 4 is 48, divided by 3 is 16, so it becomes 16b minus 12a. And if I times everything by 12, 1/3 of 12 is 4b, and 1/4 of 12 is 3a, so this becomes your two vectors. Now I can see between the two of them, I could factorize the first one, it becomes 4 bracket 4b minus 3a, and the second one remains as 4b minus 3a, which is the same thing. So what does that tell me? Well, if I divide everything by the vector part, it becomes 4 to 1 as a ratio, and that is what they wanted from the question, and that's your answer. Question number 16. Rationalize the denominator. So when I have a single fraction, I just have to times everything by the denominator, which is root 5. So it becomes 15 root 5 divided by root 5 times root 5, which is 5. 15 divided by 5 cancels out to 3, so it becomes 3 root 5 as your answer. For the second one, of course, root 75 minus 2. The first thing I'm doing is I'm going to find what root of 75 is. That's the same as root of 25 times by root of 3, and that gives you 5 root 3. So it becomes 5 root 3 minus 2 over 1 plus 2 root 3. Now, when I'm rationalizing, when I have this kind of bracket, I have to change the sign of this one over here. If it's a plus, it becomes a minus, and that's what times the top and the bottom by. And if it was a minus, it becomes a plus. And now, if you were to compare the two brackets at the bottom, they're actually a version of difference of squares. So if I times the numerator terms together, I've got 5 root 3 times by 1, which is 5 root 3. 5 root 3 times by minus 2 root 3, so 5 times minus 2 gives you minus 10. And root 3 times root 3 is 3, so 10 times 3 is minus 30. Minus 2 times 1 is minus 2. And minus 2 times minus 2 root 3 gives you plus 4 root 3. And that is all divided by 1 times 1, which is 1. And 2 times minus 2 root 3, 2 root 3 times minus 2 root 3 gives you minus 4 times 3, which is minus 12. Collect the like terms, we've got 5 plus 4, which is 9, and that is your root 3. Minus 30 minus 2 is minus 32, divided by minus 11. Now, whenever I divide by negative, I could just change the signs of the numerator. So if I change the sign of each of them, it becomes 32 minus 9 root 3 over 11, and that is my answer. Right, question number 17. Got a circle theorem question. Circle theorem, another one that comes up a lot on non-calculated papers. So they're given a tangent, and they said angle BCD is equal to 40. So this is my angle BCD. I look at the letter that's in the middle, and that's my angle 40 degrees. Angle OAB, so OAB, which one am I looking at? OAB is this one over here. That's equal to 3 times angle OAC. Nope, OAB was wrong. This is not actually OAB. OAB is this one over here, and this is OAC. Now, if one of them is x, if I call this x, then the other one is going to be 3x. So I've got OAB, this This is 3 times the other one, so this is going to be 3x, and this is going to be x. It said work out the size of angle ACD. So they want me to find the whole this angle over here. And they said write down any circle theorems you use. Now, first thing I know that this angle over here, 40, is the alternate second theorem to this whole angle over here. So just change the color. And this angle over here is going to be exactly the same. So that means that x plus 3x is equal to 40. Therefore, 4x equals 40. X equals 10. So that makes each of these angles 30 degrees and 10 degrees. That's actual values of each of them. Now, because we're working out the bottom angle over here, we need to know what the angle is now. Because I have radius on both sides, I know that this is going to be an isosceles triangle. So the base angle is the same. This must be 30 as well. And from there, I could work out the size of the third angle. So them two add up to 60. So this must be 120 degrees. And what does that tell me? Well, angle at the center is twice the angle at the circumference over here. So this must be 60 degrees. And there you have it. The angle that I want, which is ACD, must be 60. So angle ACD is equal to 60 plus 40, which makes it 100 degrees. And there you have your answer. Question number 18. Said fx is equal to 5x minus 3 over 4. Find f minus 1x. Now, f minus 1x is your inverse function. And the way to do that is you replace f minus 1 with y, and you write that as a function fx, which is 5x minus 3 over 4. You have to then rearrange it in terms of x. So times both sides by 4, you get 4y equals 5x minus 3. Add 3 to both sides. 4y plus 3 equals 5x. Divide both sides by 5, and you get x equals. Now, you get x equals 4y plus 3 divided by 5. However, the inverse function does not have the letter y in there. So you have to replace that with x, and it becomes 4x plus 3 over 5. Next question. For all values of x, gx equals x minus 1 squared, hx equals 1 minus 2x. Work out the value of g of h of 5. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work out the value of h of 5. And that's just substituting 5 wherever you see x in this question. So that's going to be 1 minus 2 times by 5. That's 1 minus 10, which is minus 9. And now this minus 9 is going to be replacing into the g function. So it's going to be g of minus 9. Wherever you see x, you replace it with minus 9. So it becomes minus 9 minus 1 all squared, which is minus 10 squared. Minus 10 times minus 10 gives you 100. And there you have your answer, 100. Question number 19. So in the semi-finals of a chess tournament, player A will play player B, and player C will play player D. The two winners will then play each other in the final. The probability of player A will win against player B is 0.6. The probability that player A will win against player C is 0.5. The probability that player A will win against D is 0.3. The probability that player C will win against player D is 0.2. Now, we know that player A is going to play against player B. And for player A to progress, the probability of that is 0.6. And what we have to find is, what is the probability of player A playing against either player C or player D? So, now C and D are going to play each other. For player C to win, the probability of that is 0.2. So for player A to play against player C, you have to times this together. So probability of A against C is equal to 0.6 times 0.2. If you multiply that out, you get 0.12. This is just the probability of player A playing against player C. Now, if I do the same thing for player A to play against player D, well, the probability of player D winning is 0.8. So probability of A against D is equal to 0.6 times 0.8, which is 0.4. Now, that's just a chance of him playing. So now what we have to do is we have to actually work out the probability of player A winning these matches. So for probability of player A to win against player C, the chance of them playing is 0.12, and the chance of player A winning this match, I'm going to use this probability over here, which is 0.5. So I have to times that by 0.5. And if I just times 12 by 5, that gives me 60. And then I have to divide that by 10 three times, so it becomes 0.06. And the chance of player A to win against, this was player C, by the way, against player D, well, the chance of them playing is 0.48. And the chance of player A winning against D is 0.3. So I have to do that, multiply by 0.3. Now, if I did 48 times by 3, gives you 4, 2 carries over, gives you 12 plus 2, which is 14. So that would give you 0.144. So the chance of player A winning the chess tournament is 0.06 plus 0.144. Add them together, you get 4, get 10, carry the 1, get 2, 0.204. And that's the chance of it winning both by the whole of the tournament. Question number 20. Last question of the paper. C is a circle with equation x squared plus y squared equals 4. So if I was to draw C out, circle over here, I know my center for this one is going to be 0, 0. And I know I've got a tangent at the point when x is p and y equals 1. So I've got some point over here. Now, I can actually work out the value of p over here because I know if I go back into this, x squared plus y squared equals 4, y is 1, so that's going to be done, and x is going to be p, so it's p squared. Therefore, p squared is actually equal to 3. P must be equal to plus minus root 3. But in the question, they told me that p is greater than 0. Therefore, p equals root 3. So my point on the tangent, somewhere over here, is root 3, 1. Now, for me to find the gradient of the tangent, I have to first find the gradient of the radius. So, gradient of radius is a change in y divided by change in x. And my change in the y is 1 minus 0. And my change in x is root 3 minus 0, so it becomes 1 over root 3. Now, for my gradient of the tangent, because I know that the two are at right angles to each other, the perpendicular lines, then I have to use a negative reciprocal. So the gradient of tangent, well, because the first one's negative, positive, then the second one must be negative. And if I do the reciprocal of this, 1 over root 3, it becomes root 3 over 1, which is just root 3. So I know my equation of tangent is going to start with y equals minus root 3x plus c. And the point on the line is this one over here, which is root 3, 1. And this is my x coordinate, this is my y. So I substitute x equals root 3, so times by root 3 plus c, and y equals 1. So then 1 equals minus root 3 times root 3 is 3 plus c, add 3 to both sides, c equals 4. So if I was to go back to my equation over here and rewrite it out now, then c is equal to 4, so y is equal to minus root 3x plus 4. I have to see what the question asked. And the question wanted me to write it in this format over here. So I have to add the root 3x to both sides, and I get y plus root 3x equals 4. And that is my answer in the way that they wanted, where a and b are integers. A is equal to 3 and b is equal to 4. And there you have it, guys. That's the end of the paper. Hope you enjoyed that. And I certainly hope you learned a lot from it. Take care, guys, and good luck for your exams.